Hello, everybody. My name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, a look at speedrunning, game development, content creation, and everything in between. And welcome back. Hello. It's been a hot minute. This is the first time I've done this live since August. It's now April, and I am so stoked to be back. This episode, we are going to talk all about Shinobi 3, a game which was one of my favorite casual playthroughs I've ever had. Hence, got to dive into the speedrun, got to check it out. How the heck do you play this game? What's everything about it? I'm so excited to chat. And here to join on this episode, world record holder at multiple times, and I've been running the game now for a few years. BaconOmelette, thanks so much for being here. How you doing?
Hey, not bad. Thanks for having me.
And so stoked that keaur could join us, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Keaur, maybe, according to speedrun.com, you're the first person who ever submitted a time to speedrun.com for this game. So, was there anybody before you?
I think there had to have been, but I don't remember.
It was so
long ago.
Not on Speedrun.
Well, maybe when it was for SRC, because we had the SDA and we have, so I know that there were some others we'll get to it as we talk, but according to speedrun.com, which of course doesn't lie, it's got to be accurate. It's on the internet. Mm-hmm. So you're the first. But anyway, so excited. Okay, so we have some experts to chat about the game, folks, and we'll dive in here in just a sec. Before we get into any of that, I always like to, give the guests a chance to get to know them a little bit. So, BaconOmelette, why don't we start with you and tell us a little bit about your start in gaming before even speedrunning or anything like that. What were some of the first games you played, and how'd you get into gaming?
Oh gosh, I think one of the first games I would have played was Shinobi 3. I don't know if you heard of that.
Little game.
I've been playing games since I was like 3 years old, and yeah, this game came out when I was 3 years old. So,
did you have Genesis in the family back then?
Oh yeah, we were a Sega family.
Fantastic. And keaur, how about you?
I guess we'll go with that question of like when I started gaming. I think I was like 2 years old and I played Contra.
He's wanting me up. He's wanting me up already.
But I mean, I got my Genesis after the NES, and Shinobi 3 was one of my favorite games. My sister had a friend that brought it over, and I was like, I love this game. And then my mom ended up getting it for me, and the rest is history. It was, I was hooked.
I got to join you both on this a little bit. I didn't have a Sega Genesis growing up, but my best friend did. And Revenge of Shinobi, the second one, was a game that we played nonstop. And the thing that I loved about Revenge of Shinobi is that at the time, I'm really big into cinema and film and stuff. And it felt like I was playing a movie when I played that game.
Oh, yeah.
And even now, I just played Shinobi 3 just last year. So it's a very recent play for me. And it still has a lot of that feeling, but with just turned up to maximum awesomeness, because you could do all these cool things with it. And so that's one of the things I think I've enjoyed about the whole Shinobi series from that time period, is that it had this larger than life feeling to it, that you were getting to do all these awesome things, and it felt really good in the hands and all that kind of fun stuff. Oh
yeah, Revenge of Shinobi is really, really cool. I mean, it's notorious for all the copyright infringement stuff. Like, it had Godzilla, Batman, and Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, and Terminator.
Right. So cool. Okay, so cool. So let's first, let's break down the game a little bit, and then we'll get into the speedrun aspect of it, because I think this game has such a great casual playthrough or first playthrough that I can understand why people want to go speedrun it, because they want to have those similar feelings, I'm sure, of how well it plays. Let's first talk about Bacon, I'll start with you. Kind of what makes a Shinobi game, or what does this game do that might be different than the other games? What makes this game Shinobi 3?
I mean, like you were saying with Revenge of Shinobi, it's similar to that game. You're side-scrolling, you're a ninja, you're shooting kunais, you're hitting enemies. But this game kind of ups the speed quite a bit with running, which is huge. Revenge of Shinobi, you're just a ninja walking around, which is great, but running makes the game feel so much smoother, to me at least. It's just so much speedier. You have more movement options as well. You got the wall jumps and dive kicks and all the crazy stuff that happens. You're riding on a horse in one level, you're on a little surfboard in a level. It's great.
It definitely has a huge diverse move set, and it for looking like a Shinobi game, the running just almost makes it feel so different than the other two games that came before it. That was the thing I noticed right away. keaur, had you played any other Shinobi games before this one, or was this your first Shinobi game?
So before, I did play Revenge of Shinobi when I was younger, but I guess just not understanding like the pace of it, it kind of frustrated me because I was already used to Shinobi 3 at the time. But no, like that was it. I didn't play like the very first Shinobi on arcade until I was like 29. So yeah, very different too. Did not play Shadow Dancer, didn't play Shinobi Legions. We can talk about those games later if you want, but yeah.
Shinobi was definitely one of those staples in most of the arcades that I remember growing up around. I don't remember playing it because I got destroyed a lot in it. So like a lot of arcade games, I'm sure like a lot of kids, it's something like the game just, I couldn't get very far. I could only get past first couple levels, and then I had to start pumping more quarters in. So it's not a game I played a ton, right? Bacon, do you have any experience with the original Shinobi game in the arcade?
No, I never played it in the arcade. Like Keaur, I didn't play it till my 20s either, I would say. And even then, I didn't play that one too much. I mean, I played Shadow Dancer. That was another one on the Sega Genesis. Came out in between Revenge of Shinobi and Shinobi 3. And that game's more similar to the arcade one where you have to save hostages in the levels. But you have a cool dog. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, right?
That's a good game, too. Good speedrun as well.
Keaur, why don't you take us through some of the mechanics of Shinobi 3 and like, so what are like kind of the basic movement and if you're picking up the game for the first time, what are like the basic things you can do as Shinobi in this game?
Sure. So like as soon as you start playing Shinobi, you're going to notice that you can move left and right just like any other game you're walking. One thing that it doesn't exactly tell you is how to run, which you just press, forward twice or back twice depending on the direction that you're going. Obviously there's a jump. You can throw your kunai, and there's obviously the ninjutsu, which is just a single button. You press start, you can select your ninjutsu and use it as you please. There's 5 different ninjutsu to select from, I believe. 4? Is there 4? 5. Okay, there's 4. There's 4. Yeah. So you got your shield, your fire spin move, you got your explosive move, and then you have your shadow move that makes you jump higher. I don't know. I totally dumbed that down. I could break it further if you want to use more accurate names, but yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like going through the game, you run through. Your first set of enemies are just the stationary ninja. You also have your other ninja that come out of the trees, and then you have these sort of like armored foes that take 2 normal hits to kill. But you can also pick up a POW, which is a power up, and that basically allows Joe to use powered up kunai, but also to use Joe's sword in melee range, which is very effective. And we definitely want to keep that in the speedrun. We don't want to get hit, lose it, and then we lose all that time because we could be using powered up shots.
I remember some of these things feeling similar from Revenge of the Shinobi. With some of the ninjutsus are the same, and some of the attacks are the same, double jump, things like that. Were there BaconOmelette, I'll throw are any of the ninjutsus different from game to game, or does this one have any unique ones, or these are all the same ones we've had in the game past?
I believe this is all the same stuff from Revenge. Yeah. I don't know if they all function the same way, but it's the same ones, yeah.
One of the things I think the game does really well is there are challenges in some of the platforming sections, as well as some of the combat stuff that you have to do and trying to figure out how to defeat certain enemies. And I think this game does I think that's one of the things that keeps it interesting from level to level is that there's this variety going on, even though there are some auto scrollers and stuff like that in the game. Take us through some of the bosses, BaconOmelette, because that's one of the things I think have kind of been a staple of maybe because obviously, as we mentioned in Revenge of Shinobi, there were so many, infamous ones, but the bosses are actually really fun to kind of figure out and challenge you in this game.
Yeah, a lot of the bosses are pretty straightforward, but there's quite a bit of variety. Like the first boss is just this samurai guy who just slides around on the ground. So he's on the ground. And then the second level's boss, it's this little robot thing that's flying around. So you got to jump and attack him. So there's some variety just with the first 2 bosses there. And then the third boss there is the really, really gross looking Hydra guy. I think that's pretty infamous, the art graphics for that guy. But yeah, there's quite a bit of variety. The speedrun obviously has some strats that make them pretty trivial. Like with the ninjutsus there, you can plan out when you're going to use them for those bosses. So that's all routed in. So the bosses are pretty trivial for the most part, I would say, other than like a couple that you have to actually like sit down and train to get good at.
Yeah, like round 6.
Yeah.
Every speedrunner's dream. I love doing it.
That was kind of my experience, actually, that when I was playing casually, that it didn't get a tad challenging. A couple ones at the end. The last boss, it took me a minute to figure out and stuff like that, where I definitely lost some lives to that one.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I liked about the game, and this was this case for Revenge as well, was that it offers some things to make a casual playthrough easier, which for some of these games of this era, having this notoriously challenging aspect to them, it was nice that you can increase the shurikens and your lives to kind of make the game a little bit more beginner focused or beginner friendly, to say the least. The other thing, one of the things, if you look on some of the world record speedruns, I was having fun going through the YouTube comments where so many people comment on the quality of the game because it has these great gameplay elements. The graphics look phenomenal for the time, but then the soundtrack is just like this kicking soundtrack throughout the entire game. And I think it's kind of a staple of the Shinobi series from the Sega Genesis as well.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on the soundtrack, or was that one of the things that attract? I mean, especially as a speedrunner, you're playing it 100 different times. I mean, do you ever get tired of the soundtrack?
No. Honestly, Clay said in chat, or CMM said in chat, Shinobi music is based. It's absolutely based.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like, what honestly helps speedrunning this game is how good the soundtrack is. Not even kidding.
Yeah, this was my first speedrun that I picked up. So picking up other games, I would quickly notice how tired I would get of other music. Like if it's not as good, it's just like, oh God, we got to listen to this again.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I always recommend when people ask, hey, how do I start speedrunning or anything like that is, well, can you stand the soundtrack? Because I've honestly picked certain games because the first level soundtrack is awesome. Like, and I don't get tired. Rondo of Blood, Castlevania Rondo of Blood is one of those ones where I'm like, I never get tired of this first level, and you're going to play it 100 different times or 1,000 times, you know? So it is such a bop. Totally agree with you all in the chat that it's a great one. That's one of the things you can't say enough. And every level is like that. It's not like there's a clunkers in this one. Just from... And I think that's one of the things that added to me when I was playing Revenge of Snowy back as a kid. Like I think the soundtrack definitely added to it making it feel like a movie, because a lot of late 80s, early 90s movies, when I was playing these games, the action movies sounded like this. It literally has that feeling of what some of those movies felt like. I was into, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, all these movies, where action stars and stuff had this kind of feeling to it. So. Yeah,
Yuzo Koshiro really nailed Revenge of Shinobi's music. He didn't work on Shinobi 3, but you can tell it's tonally different, the two games. Mm-hmm. But I think they both fit exactly what they needed to do for each game.
Totally. Okay, so now the let's move on to the speedrun a little bit, because Keaur, having done the research on this now, I know you've been playing this game for a very long time. I don't know if you still play it, because I know you haven't submitted a PV in a while. I don't know if you're burned out on it yet, but tell us a little bit, how did you get into speedrunning, and when did you decide to pick this game up?
Sure, absolutely. So I came onto Twitch. This is relevant, trust me. I came onto Twitch when I was very much into Dota 2. So I was like, streamers on Dota 2. Okay, I'll watch the game, how the pros do it, and see if I can, get better. That didn't work out. I don't play Dota 2 anymore. But it did introduce me to Twitch, and I was like, oh, wait. Banjo-Kazooie, Majora's Mask. These are speedrunners on here. Like, what about Shinobi 3? So then I looked it up, and it's like, nobody's online in the directory. So I was like, why not I try? So I looked up times. One notable one was Mike Uyama. I was on SDA, and I was like, oh, he had a 29-minute time. I think I can do better than that. So I went ahead and set up my Twitch, and I was like, all right, this is going to happen. This is back in 2014. And I started with that, and then I finished the stream with my Binding of Isaac. It was fun. Like, I had speedrunning and then something casual just to wind down for the night. But yeah, since 2014, I've been speedrunning this game. I've been trying to do a bit of research into like what I can do to like make the run better. And yeah, honestly, like, it's been fun since then. We haven't really had a like real like tutorial until recently, and by recently I mean like 4 or 5 years ago now. Yeah. I need to update it. Absolutely. There have been a lot of research into, not research, but like a lot of updates into the run. that are definitely going to get you a great time. My tutorial is going to get you a good time, but you can get a great time now. So, yeah.
So first of all, no joke, you're not the first person to mention Dota 2 to get you into speedrunning, which is surprising to me. But then again, when you find a game you like, you're looking for others. Hey, who else has played the game? So I get that aspect of it. At the time you found Mike's run, was there any community around the game? Was anybody else running the game at this time besides Mike?
I don't think so. And here's the thing is that Bacon definitely was around that time, I think on YouTube, but I didn't discover Bacon until way later. I think I would say I discovered Eclipse Void's videos in 2015, 2016. It was probably 2016 actually. But yeah, and that's who Bacon was back then. That was his old handle. But yeah, he had some pretty cool stuff. You still have those videos up. They're just
I have
name.
Shinobi 3 videos from like 13 years ago. This is like some of the tech, like later on we can talk about it, but there's like a ceiling clip that you can do to get through some ceilings, which is huge for speedrunning. And prior to that, I'd never seen it. So I had that uploaded to YouTube like, over a decade ago.
That is so cool.
It was cool. But sorry, to answer your question, I didn't really have any like community per se. I was kind of like a loner. I didn't really know who else liked the game. I mean, I've talked to friends and they're like, yeah, I've heard of the game, but they don't speedrun it. You know, they heard of it, they played it, they didn't beat it, you know, but yeah, I was just around that time I was the Shinobi guy. And then everybody else came and man, I'm just
You're out there living
great.
off your coattails. I'm just kidding.
It's great. It's great. I love it. I love it. Everybody's came and stuck around. It's been fun. Shadax in chat as well. He was the world record holder for a bit. And we can talk about that later if you want. It's quite a bit of shoot. Yeah. It was him, Bacon, A-Frame, and then I held the. Sorry, we can go through times later if you want.
No, it's totally fine. I think it's a great time to do the history. It's keaur, BaconOmelette, Shadax, A-Frame, Dagron. Is that a different category?
So Shadax is Dag, right? Different name.
Yeah, new name. New name.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So that's good. I'm glad we're getting the right, recognizing the right people for this. So cool. Okay, so then speaking of that, then BaconOmelette, why don't we tell us a little bit about your history? How did you find speedrunning, and how the hell did you end up with this game?
That guy on the screen there, that's how I got introduced to the speedrun. Yeah, I can't remember how long into his speedrunning of the game that I eventually found him, and then was just hanging out all the time. But yeah,
I answer that.
Yeah, you might have. He might have some dates there. But yeah, no, keaur was definitely someone that I enjoyed watching. Like I never thought like, oh, I can't do that. He's so good at the game. Like even when I started to pick up the game, I didn't speedrun the normal any percent category that keaur had the record in. I picked up from the kunai-less category that was brand new at the time. So that was my introduction to speedrunning this game, was a totally different category, which is also a really good category. But
so it was January 2017, whenever, like, I guess it may have been December, because I think there were older messages and I think they'd migrated to a new messaging platform. But yeah, Bacon and I were in communication, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had been finding like tons of things in this game. Like, my history with this game, just on the internet as a whole, goes back to when the beta ROMs were dumped and shared online for this game. There's a couple beta ROMs that were out. When they surfaced, there was a whole like forum that's like long since gone now of fans of the game that were just dissecting everything they could with the betas, because one of them is quite a bit different, like totally different levels. So yeah, I was one of the people that was helping with uncovering some of the stuff from those ROMs, which is pretty cool.
Excuse me for just 1 sec. Okay, got it. Give me 1 second here. I had to restart a recording. Just 1 second. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that was one of the things that popped up in the research, which I was really surprised about, is that I don't know how often this happened back at this time frame, but basically the developers took extra time out, which would have cost a lot of money at the time, to it feels like some of those betas almost feel like a different game than what we got. And I'm curious, did you get a chance to play any of those? It sounds like maybe you've even, or at least you've seen them, you're somewhat familiar with them.
Well, it's funny. The betas that are online aren't the versions that were on in magazines in 1992.
Oh, interesting.
The 1992 magazine reviews of that build of the game that apparently didn't get reviewed too well.
Yeah.
They're totally different than what we got on the internet right now. So
wow.
Somewhere out there, hopefully one day that ROM surfaces. I would love it if it did.
No kidding.
But yeah, there's a 1992 version of the game. I guess the developers and Sega weren't liking how well it was received. So they said, go back to the drawing board, and they took another whole year. And yeah, it's basically a whole different game. Like, they had totally different levels and stuff. If you look, there's a bunch of magazine scans you can find online for that. It's really cool.
It's super cool, and it almost makes me thankful that something like that did happen, because we might not have gotten the game that we have today.
Yeah.
So
it definitely smoothed out some things from what, because yeah, you can read the reviews. That same magazine that reviewed the 1992 version also would have reviewed the 1993 final version that was released, and they were saying like it was a lot smoother of a game.
On the way off chance that anybody's listening to this might have access or know where that beta is, send it over to Hard for Games. Get them to dump the ROM, and we would
Seriously,
love it.
I would love that. That would be like Christmas times a million for me. I love this game so much. So if I were to get my hands on that version of the game, I could have like a different Shinobi 3 to speedrun, you know?
Right? Yes, totally. So when you got into it, Bacon Omelette, was anybody, I mean, besides Keaur, was it still the same type of thing? There's not many of you doing if any, running at this time?
Well, at the time, that's when, like I was saying, the kunai list category. So to go into what that is exactly.
Yeah, please. Let's, what are the two categories?
Normally you have your kunais that you can throw, and then your sword and melee attack would only come up if you were in close proximity to an enemy. So you couldn't manually do it other than just standing really close to an enemy. But there's actually a 6-button code in the game that changes it so you have a dedicated kunai button and a dedicated melee attack button. So that opens up just doing melee attacks. So that's a whole nother way of playing, right?
And that was pioneered by Faust.
Yeah.
Faust was definitely talked to me about it, and I was like, yeah, you should do it. Like, sure, why not?
Start
like,
it up. Be the first person to run it.
And I'm fairly certain he was. Yeah. Yep. Like he just did it. And then Bacon caught on, was like, I don't want to do the expert. I just want to have fun. And then you did it, and then you ended up getting world record on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like you were mentioning, like you were watching Mike's video of 29 minutes, and you were like, oh, I can beat that. Because when I got into speedrunning and I was looking at your time, I was like, there's no way.
Is there any speculation to why a code like that might exist in the game? Is that a developer only thing? Because on a casual playthrough, and my Genesis, I only have a 3-button controller, so I wouldn't even have thought that something like that might exist. Is there any speculation why something like that exists?
I think it might have just been added by the developers near the end of the game's life cycle, because 6-button controllers were brand new or new-ish at the time.
There you go.
At that year,
right here in the chat, that maybe it didn't even hadn't
released.
Well,
there we
right
go.
Around that time. Yeah, interesting.
But what's interesting is that 6-button code never was known for like the first 10 years that game was out. And I'm not sure how it was even figured out. I know eventually one of the developers in an interview was straight up just mentioned that it was in the game. And then if you play the 3DS port of Shinobi 3, which was really cool, by the way, with the 3D slider thing, it actually looks really nice. That version of the game has in the options just 6-button mode option in there. So that's like built in.
Mm-hmm.
Keaur, I was watching one of it was either PB or maybe it was your GDQ run, where you talked about having played the 3DS version. And did you ever try speedrunning that one? Just curious.
So I talked about it because on my flight to GDQ, I had my 3DS at the time, and I was just practicing strats on the plane. Like it's really convenient. There's a level select. It's a great version of the
nice.
game.
Yeah.
But
Quality
the
of
thing
life.
is, exactly. The problem though is just it's the controls. Like I would not recommend it just based on the controls alone. If I could plug a Genesis controller up to it, yeah, I'd probably do it. Absolutely. But
The first speed run that I ever attempted was Zelda 2, and the only way that I could play that game, I had emulators, but I was on my 3DS. I had the virtual console, and the D-pad, it feels like it's this big, so it's super tiny, and it's, to your point, it's not the most comfortable to try to learn speed. My respect for all of the folks who run 3DS, DS games and stuff like that is through the roof, because I mean, the buttons just feel like they're, you can't even, they're so tiny.
I would be so scared of wearing out the buttons on that, because I've gone through 2-3 Genesis controllers just speedrunning this game.
It's intense. It's intense. All that, the double, the running.
Yeah, the run, you have to
tapping.
double tap on the D-pad. That D-pad just takes a beating.
So let's get into that. We've mentioned the basic controls, but it seems like some of the movement stuff is so important to the speed run. And one of the things I've actually really enjoyed when I've watched y'all's runs is hearing your inputs on your controllers when the microphone picks it up, because there is constant tapping going on throughout the run. And I didn't realize how much of it was until I saw your input display, Bacon Omelette, because I was just like, it feels like everything. I mean, there's a lot of inputs you have to do. So I guess, Bacon, let's start with you. Walk us through some of like the controls and mechanics for the speedrun aspect as opposed to the actual casual playthrough.
So like I was saying, you're going to have to really get used to beating up that D-pad. The double tap to run, you're going to have to do it often. It's pretty much anytime you jump and then land from the jump, you're going to have to start double tapping run again. There's an exception to that, but for the most part, you're pretty much just every time you jump, you're going to have to double tap, jump, double tap, jump, double tap.
And it's down to a science. Like, Bacon over here is definitely like frame progressed it, scienced it out, as well as some other community members have helped with this as well. It's like, well, is it better to dive kick before falling off a ledge? Is it better to run? There's definitely it's involved. It doesn't seem like there's a lot happening, but there's a lot happening.
Yeah, I have like math of frames, because every time you jump, Joe's like not moving forward for 2 frames because he's doing like the lifting off the ground animation. There's 2 frames where he's not moving forward. And then when you land, there's at least 1 frame where you're not moving forward on landing. So it's like, do I want to make that jump and lose 3 frames?
When you get to a certain point with optimization of the game, those do actually become real things, right? Like where you're making, you do that calculus in your head.
Yeah, it's definitely come to that point. At least for like the first level, I grind the heck out of that first level. So every time I like miss a frame, I can tell.
Also the music, you just you hear it.
You can hear the music and it's just like, oh, it's this part of the song. I should be like 2 pixels further. No, it's not quite that bad, but
yeah.
Well, here you've mentioned that during some of your runs, and I'm curious if you do that as well, Bacon. You use the audio, or that helps you know where you pace wise. Like, how are you using the audio in this game, from a mechanic standpoint or any other standpoint?
So I personally will use it on the start of the run, second snare drum, just start running. And even though the screen's black, Joe's going to start running. Second stage, it's going to be the first mini boss. I use audio as well as a placement, but mainly audio. Bacon, I believe, uses a different setup, but it's just comfort. Not everybody's going to use audio cues, but I like using them. I think they're effective. Same with auto scroller stages. Those are very beneficial. So like the round 6, stage 1, traps, the falling rocks, really beneficial there. You're going to know when the ninjas are going to come out and shoot a shuriken at you. Really beneficial.
You mentioned the second snare drum. So are you able to buffer that input, or are you technically taking control of Joe? Like, how does that work as far as the run goes?
I think, Bacon, you mentioned something about that. I don't know if it's a buffer.
So when the round, like when the level starts, it has this whole little map screen thing, but you can just mash start and skip that. And then it fades from black to showing the level. But during that fading from black, you can start doing some inputs while it's still
interesting.
not quite visible.
I'm gonna guess that becomes pretty important too when you're trying to get through the level as fast as possible. So
yeah, getting that head start on that first run input is really nice.
One of the things I noticed right away is how you're actually doing some of those double tapping runs on very small platforms. And I assume, or I guess when you're first picking up the game, is that where you're starting? Are you starting on just the mechanics? Or are you trying to do some of the more advanced tricks? Like, where's a good place to start as far as just picking up the mechanics of the speedrun?
Oh man, that's a good question. Honestly, like what stage do you start to be good at this game? Like, first level? I don't know. Actually, no. Just throw them straight into round 5. I trust me, you'll love it. Everybody hates that stage, but probably not as much as round 6. But yeah.
Well, I did appreciate watching the tutorial that you did break it down by round, and round 1 looked like it got posted first or published first. So
it did. So. Yeah, I definitely like recorded them and posted them as they came out. Yeah, that's what I did. Then I put them in a playlist, and it's all good. But I will say, yeah, round 5, stage 1, abysmal. There's so much execution. It's very tight.
Difficulty spikes up. Just casually playing that game, round 5, when that starts, that's when the difficulty is just like, well, I hope you have a basic understanding of the mechanics, because here's a bunch of enemies and exploding things everywhere.
You think you just got to do it, says Todd. It sounds like that's the one of those things where just dive in and, you know. There's in fact, interestingly enough, Enemy just rated, and it reminded me, you know, when I talked with Enemy so many years ago, he was talking about how he likes to practice each stage before he picks up a run. And I'm the type who likes to play through the game a bunch of times, and both approaches have some validity to it. But this game seems like it will punish you if you don't have the basic mechanics down, especially as you get later on into the run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I take the approach of breaking it down level by level. I like that way of going about it.
Yeah, one big mechanic that is very easy to not get good at or just like fail at is double jumping. Because like if you're not very well in your double jumps, you're going to miss an input, fall, or you're going to double jump too early. You know, there's definitely a lot of things you can mess up with that.
Yeah, I think double jump would be something that, like, I know casually kind of trips people up, because there is a fairly strict timing about the double jump. Like, you can't just jump. Like, you have to be at the peak of your jump to press jump again to get that double jump to come out. So that's a bit tricky, just getting into it.
On the casual playthrough, I would say I probably didn't get comfortable with it until about 30, 45, maybe even an hour in, finding where that exact double jump
sweet spot
timing was. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also some interesting things that I, just from like my first watching of the speedruns, I found that you've got clips in the game, you've got some zips in the game, you've got things that you're taking advantage of, some of the item abuse, if you call it that, where you're just taking your power-ups all the way to the end. Before I get into those, I don't know if this is a basic mechanic, but Keaur, one thing I noticed right away in your early runs was firing in the any percent run, firing, I want to call it the shurikens, but they're not that. They're how do you pronounce the word? Kunai, thank you. And it looks like there's a rhythm to it that I didn't even discover that as I was playing through casual. I just got a little frustrated because I couldn't fire that quickly. What the hell is that? And how was that discovered?
So this is what happened. I was watching Mike's run, and I noticed on 4-2, the boss, Mike was doing this like quick 2-fire burst. He was like, throw one, jump, throw another one. And I was like, that's interesting. Let's test this out. And so I was just playing it around with it one day, and I was like, oh, this is viable. I can do this. So then I tried just jump and attack in a certain rhythm, but really fast, and it worked. So it's like, okay, cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the rapid fire technique you're talking about there.
Yeah.
To explain a little bit specifically how that works, your jumping animation, like I was mentioning earlier, there's like a little couple frames where Joe is like about to leap off the ground. You can cancel that animation with a kunai throwing animation, but you can cancel the kunai throwing animation with a jumping animation. Repeat.
So
yeah.
I should have asked this earlier. You know, when we run Sonic 2, we there's all the
pianos,
pianos and stuff. Are you playing this game the same way, or are you guys thumbing it?
I'll let you answer. I have an answer, but I'll let you answer.
There's different methods depending on the runner, actually. Yeah. I like to use 2 thumbs.
Okay.
I will move my left hand over and then I will press the buttons with 2 different thumbs. I think keaur uses 2 fingers.
No, I use 2 thumbs as well.
Oh, you use 2 thumbs?
Yeah, C and B. I thought you rolled your fingers. You changed the button input?
Yeah, so there's another aspect to that. Yeah. There was about a year where I was just like, okay, I'm going to speedrun other games. And then during that year, I wasn't playing a lot of Shinobi 3. And during that time, I was also considering changing my control scheme for playing the game to a method where, I can just roll my thumb. So I made jump A button instead of the C button that it normally is on default. So I could roll my thumb from jump to kunai and then just roll it back and forth, just from A to B, A to B, A to B, A to B. But it's a little bit slower, but I found it more consistent because, if you don't get the right rhythm, you can end up jumping in the air, and obviously that's not desirable. So I have 2 different methods. One's a little slower but consistent, and then the double thumb thing, it's way faster.
I got to ask because, good, Keaur.
You mentioned piano mashing in Sonic, and it's funny, at a GDQ I was practicing that, and I was like, they used this. And I found out that you can use that. It's slower, but you can use it. And here's the caveat to that. You can actually still ninjutsu if you have the timing off, because you're actually using A with this. It's like ABC or CBA, ZBA, CBA. But I don't recommend doing it. But if you find a rhythm for it and it works for you, do it. Just do it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely up to the runner, which is kind of like a cool meta aspect of the speedrun, just how you're going to hold the controller, what you're going to do with your hands. I don't really see a lot of that in other speedrunning, tutorials or anything like that. No one talks about the aspect of how do you hold a controller and press buttons.
It's valid, honestly. It really is.
If anybody's listened to this podcast before, they know I've mentioned it a million times, but the first time I saw people at a GDQ when I went live running Super Metroid, it was almost like artistry. My brain literally broke just watching how different people grip control and all these inputs and stuff. I wish keaur, on your run at the GDQ, they would have had the camera cam, because you can hear all these things going on, but you can't see your controller on the run. So I'm like, dang, it would have been awesome to see.
Yeah, hand cam, honestly.
I love it.
Do that in the future. They should absolutely do hand cam in the future.
I started doing that just on my stream because you mentioned Super Metroid. That year that I wasn't playing Shinobi 3, I was playing Super Metroid. I picked up that game. I love that game. And I got a controller cam just because of that game. You have to change your hands so much.
I don't know if anybody else out there feels this way, but when I first decided to try a different grip playing a game, so I run a lot of TurboGrafx-16 games, and we have turbo switches, and so I started using claw grip to flip them off so I could keep pressing the buttons while I'm running. And it's intimidating to try something that you're not comfortable with. At least for me, it was. And so I never even considered that people could play the games that way. No way, it's got to be thumbs. That's the only thing I know, So I think that's some good advice from you all, that you have to find what's comfortable for you, and don't be afraid to try something if something's not working the way the world record holder is doing it, or something like that, right? You gotta find what works for you.
Even if it takes you out of your comfort zone. Like I said, I've been playing this game since I was 3 years old, in 1993 when it came out. I never changed how I changed the buttons ever. So the 2 years ago when I was just I'll just try a different control scheme, I needed that year break to just get rid of decades of muscle memory. And what better way of doing it than picking up Super Metroid when you're forced to change how your hands are holding the controller a dozen different ways.
Your brain had to have broken during that point. I mean, that just seems so...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the other things this game has to offer from a speedrunning perspective. Let's start with, I guess, the zips or the clips. You tell me which one might make more sense. But there are times where you are clipping through some walls, and then there are times where you're literally being zipped around the screen. And how does that happen? Why does that happen? What are these? I guess walk us through some of them.
So I guess clips and zips, they kind of go hand in hand. Clipping was initially found out from me just tinkering with the game. And the way it works is you do a wall hop and then you throw a kunai. But during that animation, for some reason, there's no collision detection. So you can just phase through things. So during that animation, you're still kind of having the momentum of jumping upwards. So obviously going upwards with no collision means ceilings don't exist.
Yeah.
So you have those few frames where it's just like nothing exists. You're just phasing through. But then once you're inside of a wall, it can either, like you were saying, zip you, or if you're really, really stuck in the wall, you'll just be stationary in that wall. But you can wiggle out. So it has that kind of like ejection code that I think a lot of games might have, where if you press left, if the game sees you're in a wall, it's going to push you to the right. It's going to push you the opposite direction of what you're actually pressing. So that's the case in this game as well. But you can also jump and do a dive kick really quickly, and you can actually increase your height. So if you're stuck in a ceiling and you don't quite make it all the way up, you can actually jiggle your way up, even without phasing through, just with that.
How did that impact the speedrun at the time when you had discovered some of these? What did that equate to as far as time goes?
I wasn't around speedrunning at that time. That was just me tinkering with the game.
Oh, geez.
And
it was tremendously impactful. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew about it right away, because I don't think Mike Uyama's run did anything like
his doesn't have
He
it, yeah.
didn't. And the first time I saw, was it? No, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, I definitely incorporated that in certain areas of the speedrun, and they saved a lot of time. Like, shoot, like round 3, you use that to get to the corner, fight the glitch brain boss. You know, the ooze doesn't load, save a lot of time doing that. There's round 5. It wasn't found until later. I found this through Burton. He does not speedrun Shinobi 3 at all. But this was back in like 2017 maybe. There's actually a warp in round 6, stage 2. You know, you can actually just warp directly to the boss. It's the only round or stage that actually works that way. So every single like phase of the stage is connected to one another, and the traps room just happens to be connected to the boss. So you clip into the ceiling, go to the left, dive kick immediately, I believe, and then you just wait, and then it warps you to the boss. But yeah, it's the only stage that does that.
Yeah, it's a unique stage because you have to go through doors. Like, this whole area is like a maze. You have to try and figure out, oh, do I take this door to go over here, or does that door take me backwards into the level, so I have to redo things? So you got to figure out where to go in this maze of a level. But yeah, there's this one room that you can be in, and it's right beside what would trigger the exit for entering the boss area. So you just go out of bounds in that room, touch the trigger to go to the boss room, instead of just doing the level normally. So that's that one was a pretty big time save there.
If you all can hear my dogs, they want to try the zips themselves. They want to try some of that tech. So that's why they're letting their voices be known. Super interesting. Okay, so I know there are some tool-assisted speedruns of this, mostly by Dammit, but then the most recent one I think is also by Cool Hand Mike and Dammit.
Yep, Cool Hand Mike.
Were those actually? Let me back up just 1 second before I ask about this. Keaur, were you aware of any of the tasks before you started picking up the game, or had you ever seen those? Had you thought about incorporating any of that into your run at that time?
So the one by Dammit, the 22 one before Cool Hand Mike had assisted in furthering that one. Yes. So Ta in chat mentioned vertical sips, and I was like, the task does a vertical sip. So I was like, how can I incorporate this? So I don't recommend trying this because it's not human viable, but I do have a clip where I actually get through the entirety of the final stretch in 7.2 doing a vertical zip. So that's a zip. So basically, like, you set yourself up by just getting in a wall. And whenever I think you were mentioning like the game kind of pushes you out, you want to kind of make it so the game doesn't push you out like fully. So you can just like hold yourself in a crouching position and just start attacking while you're moving out, and the game is going to take a little bit longer to push you fully out of the wall, and then you'll zip up. So that would be a zip right there. And there's certain areas where it's kind of viable. It's just kind of hard to nail the, first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're inside of a wall, but you're at the edge of the wall, so you can see yourself edging out of the wall, the ejection code pushes you upwards, but it also tries to push you out of the wall still. So you can do some different methods of getting zips where you just jump into like the corner bottom of a wall and do a dive kick. A dive kick pushes you up a little bit before it pushes you down. So during that time that it's pushing you up, it actually helps you get some height. So that's what helps get some of the zipping there. But the task has task powers.
Task is task, like
they have like this every other frame button mashing that they can do to zip up whole sections of. In 5-2, there's one room that's just totally not viable RTA. Like, it's just insane.
You should check it out. It is insane. Like,
well, that's the thing. In the final video versions, I want to include some of those clips because I was like, what the hell? As any task, that's one thing I love about how impressive they look. But I saw that and I'm like, there's no way somebody could do that. And then, at least not yet. I mean, who the hell knows? These things become so optimized. I say it now, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's never underestimate a speedrunner's determination. So
exactly.
You never know if that needs to be optimized or something like that. But that's one of the cool things I thought about the task. Where there's some things there that was like, oh, that's super interesting. And okay, so that's cool. So I'm glad to hear that there was some things you kind of just determined. You're like, I'm not sure that's going to be humanly viable at this time to try it out.
Though with that older task, they didn't have the ceiling clip, so that was one leg up that RTA had for a little while before a Cool Hand Mike updated the task, and now it's just like, okay, it's back to being untouchable. Okay.
Yep. 100%.
But I mean, one of the things I love about a task, though, is it is something to at least to strive for, or at least to to see what maybe things we could try for. If there's something we want to go for. I mean, if there's one, the most famous ones obviously are SMB, Super Mario Brothers, where with these things, no way you'd even try this, and then who the hell, people try it out and they figure out setups and all those kind of things. So I will say, and not the sidetrack or anything, but one of the things that. So I started watching speedruns about 2013, 14, saw GDQ, and I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And one of the earlier speedrunners that I really enjoyed watching their speedruns and streaming live was Mike89 or Sega Junkie. And so I just assumed, oh, Sega Genesis was popular. There must be this huge community of Sega Genesis runners and Sega runners. And it's really not. Like, I'm really surprised at how small a lot of the Sega and Sega Genesis specifically community is. And so when you look on the leaderboard for Shinobi 3, I just expected there to be 100, submits or whatever, and it's not.
I wish.
I wish there was more runners.
That's the one. But it's a compliment because I'm surprised at how well the game is being optimized even to this day. And there's still time on the table and all those type of things. But there are the world records get more and more impressive as they happen. It's been really impressive to watch, I guess, to say the least, to go through it. So.
Yeah, no, I would love more runners. Our community's great. Keaur and I are definitely, figureheads of the community. We always have we're on the same page of pushing the community to be better. So we're pretty open about sharing new tech that comes out. Like if I see anything new, I'm just on the Shinobi Discord sharing it right away. Like I'm very willing to share anything with the community. Like I want to see this game get lower and lower. If it's not me, I mean, I'm not the current record holder now, and that's okay. I just want to see this game get lower and lower and lower and lower. That's all I want.
Yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a fun ride, and like Eludra said in chat, small but passionate. Yeah, we're
yeah. Sega runners are very passionate. I got to give a shout out to Sega Crew. That's our little group of Sega runners. We do marathons and all that stuff too. So if you want more Sega, go to Sega Crew.
Yep, Sega Crew's cool.
It's definitely there are so many great games out there, and so many still waiting to be speedrun. To be honest with you, I mean, there's a great library. I haven't even dug into the Master System library. I've only played like 5 or 6 games because for some reason I don't remember that console as a kid. I was told it was sold here in the States, but I don't remember it very much. So
same, honestly.
Yeah,
you're not
alone. Wasn't very big here, right. I don't think.
So, okay, so we've gone through the movement. We've gone through some of the cool tech that's in the game. We've gone through with the bosses and all that kind of fun stuff. I think it's been real interesting to see kind of the progression of the world record. And I'm curious what kind of discoveries, or what, if you could take us through a little bit of a timeline. We don't have to mention each one, but what were some of like the big time saves, or what were some of the big moments? Like just for an example, Bacon, I know you broke a minute warning at some point, with the sub 24. Am I getting this?
Sub 24, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess tell us what were the things that kind of made some of those accomplishments happen throughout the history of this game?
I mean, the ceiling clips and that whole wrong warp that we were talking about in round 6, that was pretty huge.
What got you to the sub 24? I guess let's go with that one. What was the thing that happened that made that happen?
Shadex brought up new stage 6 clip, and yeah, the way that I did it before was definitely slower. It was safe though, and then Shadex and Bacon started doing this newer version of that clip, and it was way more extremely risky, very scary, even more so scary than 7-2 clip Final Destination.
Oh yeah,
it was Anyways,
yeah, there used to be. Like the last level had the scariest clip, and now it's the second last level, so now you can be heartbroken earlier.
Yeah, just easy resets there. It's all good. Yeah.
No, I would say that it's just a lot of optimizing what we know. I mean, there hasn't been anything too huge other than that wrong warp. I'm trying to think.
I would say bomb glitch was pretty big.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, what is that?
Go ahead, Keaur.
Yeah, sure. So bomb glitch, it was interesting. When I was running the game, I noticed that in round 3, the body weapon stage, there was something that Mike did, and it was specifically there, but I didn't think to imply it anywhere else, and I didn't really question why it was a thing. But it was when you break a box that includes like a timed bomb, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. If you don't activate the bomb like within the proximity to make it count down and boom, for some reason it gives Joe these like invincibility frames. I have no idea why he's invincible. You can phase through enemies, you just can, but you're not invincible to projectiles, so you still have to avoid those. So this is very effective in round 3 as it was first used. There's a bomb in the first area that you can just dive kick in, and you can just run through those enemies. Then there's another area where there's these like brain creatures in the capsules. There's another time bomb there. You can throw a kunai and then just jump and then just like run through them. You don't have to
just
worry
run
about
through. It causes a bunch of lag because there's a bunch of enemies spawning that you're supposed to be dealing with, but no, you're just running through them.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah. That's actually an important aspect. That one thing we didn't even talk about was the lag reduction, all the things you all are doing to keep all the extra sprites and things off of the screen. It's so funny. That's something we don't talk, and it's maybe because it's not the most sexiest thing, but especially in 8 and 16-bit era games, lag reduction. What do you have to do to reduce some of that lag? Because you don't even notice it watching your all's runs, especially your PBs and some of the runs from GDQ. You don't even notice it's happening on screen. What do you have to do and what causes the lag, and what do you have to do to reduce it?
Well, I would like to point out your first casual playthrough of this game when you got the reset glitch in round 5. In round 5, if you have too many enemies and explosions and just tons of stuff on screen, that spot in particular is notorious for just resetting the game. That's how the game deals with it crashing. It just goes, oh, okay, just go back to the Sega like you hit the reset button. That's how it deals with the game crashing. So yeah, that level's pretty bad for lag. So for lag reduction, so for that level, there's these little silos that you run along and then they explode. For the run, you want to optimize your movement so you're not creating too many explosions, and then take out some enemies along the way to reduce the lag. It's that spot in particular is one of the more rougher speedrun spots, I would say, for optimizing.
We definitely like ran through it quite a few times. I think almost every year, if I'm not mistaken. Like every year we're running through optimizations through it again and again and again. Just
last year where we had, I think 4 of us, myself, you, Keaur, Shadex, and then A-Frame, we all have a different way of doing 5-1. and I think it was A-Frame who just like stitched all 4 of our PBs
Yeah.
and just
no,
compared.
that was me. I made
was
the
it you?
video.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
I made, it was a video of like Shadax, Bacon. I don't know if it was me, it was someone, and then it was A-Frame as well. And I was just like, all right, at the same time, this is what we do different, this is what we do similar.
It seems so obvious, like, oh, compare your speedrun to somebody else. But the way we were comparing it was just like, where does this person press jump? What frame do they jump?
Where are they dive kicking? Where are they landing? It's
how many lag frames are going on here? Yeah.
It's a real thing, and because I assume you all play on console, like this is, even the emulators now accommodate for lag like perfectly nowadays. So
yeah, emulators definitely faster. It doesn't even matter which one you're playing on. From my experience, all emulators deal with that level. There's another lag reduction thing with the final boss, because when you kill the final boss, it just makes explosions all over the screen. There's just explosions. It's super obnoxious, but it was recently figured out that if you just make Joe crouch to make his sprite smaller, it helps a little.
Really?
Yeah, just making your sprite a little smaller seems to get rid of some lag.
I wonder if that's less pixels being drawn on screen or something.
Yeah, less pixels being drawn on the character.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
That's just happens to be enough to actually matter.
One of the things that I also found that was kind of cool was some of the strats differ from kunai lists and 80%. And I know specifically on the end boss, it seems like that's, to say at least, a frustrating spot for the speedrun. Tell us a little bit about what you have to do differently. Let's start with the final boss, because that was just one of the most obvious places, but some of the other ones that make any percent and kunai lists different.
Yeah, okay, so obviously when you don't have the ability to attack your opponent from full screen, it's going to change the way you have to do things. There's a lot of tricky maneuvering on that final boss, you could say. Like, I can sit and just grind that boss over and over and over and over and over and over, and I'll still find something slightly different with that boss's behavior. It's pretty interesting to see how he reacts to where you are just on the screen. So when you have to change completely what you know of, just firing kunai across the screen safely to being up and personal in his face, you really have to adapt to it's like a whole nother boss.
I will say the most profanity might have been on the last boss of the PBs that I was watching in that category, just because it seemed like it sucks to get through a full run, and that's where you lose your run. To that boss. So I can imagine that's frustrating especially if you're newer to the game or anything like that. So,
but along with the not just the bosses, like the bosses are pretty big between the two categories of a difference. I mean, the levels aren't too bad. I mean, you're running to the right of the screen for most of these levels.
Yeah.
that doesn't change.
Well, when you put it that way.
It's just like Mario, right?
Yeah. But there is one tiny thing. So I was mentioning how the ceiling clips work, where you jump and throw a kunai, and then that specific animation doesn't have collision.
Right.
In 6-button mode, because it was tacked, at least what I assume, because it was tacked onto the game so late in the development, it doesn't function quite properly. It skips that specific animation state of wall hop attack, and it just goes from wall hop to just a normal airborne attack. So it doesn't have that same state that the characters put in, so you can't actually ceiling clip in 6-button mode. So effectively making that not possible for kunai-less.
So that's where that extra time.
Which is kind of a shame, but it does open up one other new movement mechanic. That specific character state where you're wall hopping and attacking, you're not allowed to move back towards into the wall. Like, it's got Joe moving away from the wall as if he's jumping off of the wall. But because of the 6-button mode just being the normal airborne state, you can push yourself back towards the wall sooner because you have free movement just because you're in a normal airborne state. So because of that, you can just wall hop and then go back to the wall hop, go back to the wall hop. So you can just get those wall hops really quick with that. So that's different movement which is pretty cool. It's nice to have something besides just the bosses.
I know for me personally, when I'm grinding a category, it's nice. Sometimes I need a break, and sometimes it's nice to try one of the other categories of a game I'm playing, and that's definitely nice to have something different to do than just the same kind of thing over and over again. That is there any? I don't know if you would know this or not, but Sonic 2, when I was running that for a little time, we used a certain revision of the cartridge, use one of the collections, because there were some things you could do in there that you couldn't do in the base cartridge. Are there any revisions of this cart or is it all okay? So the 6-button code works in all the cart all over.
There is the Japanese version came out before the North American version, and there is some differences between the two versions just with level layouts.
Okay. With the actual layouts, wow.
Yeah, it's not a ton, but
makes it a slower speed run.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a slower speed run on the Japanese version because of there's a ceiling that we clip through that's not possible on the Japanese one, I believe.
There's a couple actually, if I'm not mistaken. I think in Final Confrontation and in round 5.
Round 5, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's not a ton of changes between the two, but there is some slight changes. But yeah, the North American version does be the fastest just because of some of the movement tech for clipping.
As of our time recording this we're actually doing on April Fool's Day of all things, 2024. A-Frame is the current world record holder in any percent with a 23:35. In your all's opinion, where do you think the speedrun could go next, or where is there still places to optimize the movement? What's kind of the next frontier? Is there a next frontier for speedrunning this game?
What do you think, Keaur? I'm actually just going to open up Live Split because I want to see what my sum of best is.
Oh, there you go. It's a good point.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. It's like,
because my sum of best, I believe, is under world record still.
Ooh.
So it is possible, but there is RNG within the game, and then execution is just so big in this game.
Yeah, like those frames we were talking about earlier, like they matter. They matter huge.
So my sum of best is 23:23.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is lower than A-Frame's. Me and A-Frame like to compare splits all the time. We're in DMs like after he's done a stream and he's got like a new gold split. We're like, oh, okay, what was that time on that gold split? And I think if we took both of our splits for each level, it can be like a 23:20. So there's some time to be saved. It's really just playing well, getting the good RNG on some of those later bosses, especially. Yeah. Hopefully there's some new tech. I mean, maybe a future listener wants to pick up the game.
Hey, yo.
Maybe they have some experience with other similar games, and they can take some ideas from that game and bring it to Shinobi, and they can go, oh, you guys never thought of this? Let's do this.
Yeah, sequence break, the auto scrollers, absolutely.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if we can lose on just one auto scroller, please.
I tell you, that seems like the golden ticket for so many games. Where if we could just figure out how to break the damn auto scrollers. Keaur, I got to ask you. I know at some point you put the game down. Was there any reason, just time to take a break? What was it that finally got you to take a break from running the game?
That's a good question. I think it was because I was burnt out. That's what happens, you get burnt out. And I was also finding interest in just enjoying the speedruns as they came. Right. I also I mentioned the tutorial. I kind of like just providing help at that point. Yeah. I wasn't really like more interested in running the game. I was just like, okay, what can I do to kind of help out? But yeah, it's just mainly burnout. And like occasionally you'll see me in like some races, some events, and that's just because it's fun to just hang out with the guys and just
That's just Keaur being nice and saying that I bully him into playing Shinobi 3 with me.
He does. He does. He absolutely does.
Hey, we're doing this race for this event.
Let's do it.
I signed you up for this marathon. You have to play.
It's funny. I
was voluntold.
Yeah. Voluntold. Yeah. Well, when I reached out to BaconOmelette to do this episode, he immediately mentioned that you should join, and I thought that was so cool because when I started doing research, I noticed you hadn't streamed in 4 years or something like that, and so I didn't realize that you were still that part of the community, because I had just started my research. So the fact that you're out there and still, because there's so much knowledge in what you did when a lot of other people worked, so the fact that you're still sharing it out there, as much as I don't speedrun the game, the community, I'm sure, is appreciative of it for it, because it sucks a lot, especially nowadays. This is, it's a conversation we're having with a lot of different speedrunners that, some of our information is only on Discord, which is not always the easiest place to access, unless there's somebody like you, keaur, who's out there interacting with the community, so we keep running into this problem.
Well, I do want to correct, I'm not usually the one that jumps into people's streams and helps them. I gotta give it to Bacon. I'm fairly certain he's the one does that way more than I do.
I am just on the Shinobi 3 Twitch directory more often than I want to admit. I'll just tune into casual playthroughs of this game, on the off chance that maybe this casual person thinks of something. Who knows? I mean, there was that whole, what was it, Metal Gear Solid? Someone was playing that game just casually and they found a huge skip. You never know. It's worth tuning in.
I love that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things I think I still enjoy about watching speedrunning and stuff like that, is that if you're playing the game that I speedrun, or if the game that the person likes, a lot of times you'll see those people meeting there, no matter if they're just learning the speedrun or it just because we still love the game, even though we may have put it down ourselves,
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Bacon, you haven't PB'd in a minute as well. So same thing with you. Are you taking a break, or do you still? I mean, as you mentioned, you still watch it. Do you still have any plans to play the game? What's your story with it?
I mean, mentally I have plans of doing it, but after a long day of work, you sit down at your computer desk and you're just conked out. That's my biggest hurdle with streaming and speedrunning in general. Is just
that's
I'm too tired. But no, I definitely have plans of, pushing this game. I would love to get the record back at least one more time before I, hang it up. That's the goal, at least. We'll see if it happens. I mean, A-Frame's got a really killer time. He's really, really good at this.
And it's interesting. He
picked it up late too. He didn't grow up with the game.
Wow.
Yeah, picked it up, asked in the Discord, me and Bacon were in trying to help him, and he just was like, all right. I think maybe Shadox is in too. I'm not sure. But yeah. It's been good.
I think that's kind of the cool thing. That's one of the things I've loved to, and keaur, I'm curious actually, I guess Bacon, because you've been around too. You're curious, when you all first picked up the game or first started playing the game, did you ever expect it to see as many runners or just more people at all? I mean, to see it kind of where did you ever expect the speedrun to end up where it has today when you first started playing the game?
No, absolutely not.
I thought sub 24 would have been near impossible. And now I personally have a dozen sub 24 times just in runs, and a few other people have sub 24s now, of course. It's really cool to see what it's become, for sure. I gotta give it up to the community for putting up with me pushing this game and wanting to just nerd out. If somebody figures something out, I'm just in an emulator, I'm looking at memory addresses, I'm trying to dissect everything I can possibly can. And they're just okay, man, take it easy.
One of the things I think is cool about this game is that, yes, you can play it on an emulator. It's a great place if you don't have access to some of the other things. But this game has been re-released a fair amount of times, interestingly enough, on different collections and stuff like that. It's a fairly easy game to get a hold of. And I got to tell you, even though I just played it for the first time last year, I already put it at one of the top casual playthroughs I've ever had on the Genesis or any console. It reminded me, you can feel like a badass your first time playing through it. And there's a few games I've had that, Bayonetta was one of them, where you just feel awesome the first time you're playing it. And this game had that. It doesn't take too long to fit. Now, you're not going to get the speedrun strats, but you can just how good it feels in the hands. I think that's one of those things that's universal about the game.
Yeah, it does feel pretty tight. There's almost virtually zero lag between your actions. It's great. That's what you want in games.
Very responsive. Yeah.
The first time I did the run, and then I did I used my sword at the end of the run. I was just oh, this is badass. This is so cool. This is so fun. So if people were interested, or maybe they just wanted to join the community and see what's out, where's a good place to start with Shinobi 3 speedrunning? Where would you recommend?
The Discord. That was actually so hold on. We need to give him a shout out. Shadex actually did create the Shinobi Discord in chat. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for him, then we probably wouldn't have this community as it is, like as bloomed as it is today. So
thank you, Shadex.
It covers not just Shinobi 3, but like Revenge of Shinobi, all the Shinobi games. So
it's just a general Shinobi Discord.
General community too. Like everyone in the community is great.
Yeah. We do that with Castlevania, and it's honest. I'm glad that, because you never know what might carry over, but even so, you might find something you didn't know about. I completely agree. That's a great way to do it.
Oh yeah, but yeah. The Discord's definitely the best way of getting into it. Like if you have any questions with the run, I'm super open to questions about this game. Like I will respond to anyone. Like if they have even the slightest interest in the speedrun, I am more than happy of getting that extra push you might need to start doing it.
On the YouTube version of this, I will include some of the videos that we've talked about in this video, because it's helpful to see some of these things as they're doing it on screen. I want to give a shout out to Keaur's tutorial, and I don't want to commit to it, but I'm thinking of trying some of it out myself. When I first learned Super Mario Brothers 3, I was using Chuck's tutorial from, I think it's 8-9 years ago now, and to pick up basic mechanics, those things are still really good quality material. So the fact that you have one of those for this game, not every game can say that, especially a lot of Sega Genesis games, which, like I mentioned, the community is not as big as you would think. And so the fact that you did that and took the time out, how long did it take you to make that darn thing?
Oh man. So I actually did have in mind to use that drawing software on the screen to kind of explain like what the heck I was doing and where you want to be, with things to consider. Whenever I got the rhythm down after the first iteration, like the first round, then it was just, I think it was off and on. I think I stopped at like round 5 for a bit, or maybe round 4. And then like in between, it was like a few months, maybe several months. Was it a year? I don't know. It was a big time. I'd never finished it until then. And then I finished it, and then I was like, okay, it's complete. It's there. It's going to get you a good time. That's what's important. So
even if you're not interested in picking up the speedrun, I suggest watching some of those videos, because like he was saying, he's drawing over top of the screen to like illustrate things. Like it's like a football play. There's like circles and arrows. Yeah. It's amazing. It's a great tutorial.
Totally agree. I bring up Chuck's tutorial again once just because he was live streaming it, and he's like, how do I talk about this? Like, I can't point to the screen. Nobody can see me pointing at the screen, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you can figure that out is so awesome.
I was trying to bridge that gap.
I want to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of runs that really helped me understand the game a little bit better. First of all, BaconOmelette's PBs are almost all of them are great. But specifically, Shadex SGDQ run from last year, 2023, really great. And there's actually a lot of explanation going on that's really helpful. A great place to see the run. And then Keaur, your run from 2015, is that one? AGDQ 2015, am I getting that right?
Yes, yeah, it was 2015. Mm-hmm.
It was super fun. Time, it's a really great run too. Like you didn't miss much, dude. Like you were for the tools you had available to you at the time. I thought it was a really clean run, really impressive at that point. So, and then Mike's run was just a fun run to see. Kind of you could see earlier GDQ if you want to watch Mike Uyaba's run. It just
he got the reset. Oh gosh, he got the reset glitch. Yep, that was great. Also, everybody. They were all like,
having worked with him a little bit, you could totally see his marathon runner brain is on too. So he's trying to talk about prizes and stuff like this at the same time. He's trying to not do very tough things in that game. So super fun to watch, but some fun ones to go back and check out. And then all the world records have been fun to watch through, as especially I do appreciate the way SRC is laid out nowadays, where you can actually just kind of click through where they have a world record progression basically.
Yeah, and that's great. I love that.
Yeah, so it's great for research and also fun. Just you can really tell how the runs have progressed, and never fails at the end of your runs. Like, well, I could save time here. I could save time here. There's always check out where you can save time at the end.
Yeah, if you're finishing a PB and you say, "Yep, that was the perfect run," you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Super Mario Bros, I guess.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
That's the only game I think you can do that.
So true. Well, typically at this point of the stream, I give you all shout outs to, hey, where can people find you and stuff like that. Obviously, we know about the Discord. Any place you want to send anybody, or where can people find you if they were curious about hanging out with your stream or anything, if you stream, those kind of things.
Sega Crew.
Sega Crew is a good spot. I do stream like once a month. I try at least once.
What I'm at right now, yes.
But yeah, you can find me just Bacon Omelette pretty much everywhere.
Or the Shinobi Discord. That's cool too.
Yeah, Shinobi Discord's a good spot too there. Which you can find in the speedrun.com's Shinobi 3 section. You can find the link for that.
You could also find it in my Twitch links if you go to my page. I don't stream anymore. You can follow me if you want, but I don't really stream anymore. So
YouTube's still up there, and you still got a great YouTube bio about,
Oh yeah. That's right. You can check my YouTube. I still have the videos there. So yeah, feel free.
PBs. I do appreciate your highlights that go on YouTube of PBs, because you cut as soon as you finish the time. And sometimes, nowadays you got to celebrate. Nope, you cut right with it. You fit your time.
I mean, that's it. Like, you're here for the run. I'm gonna give you the run. That's it. No fluff.
I love it. Hey guys, thank you so much for first of all helping out with all this research for this, but also walking through a game that I really enjoyed. And I hope if you haven't, you would consider. It's not a very long casual. It only took me 3 or 4 hours, I think, to play through the game casually the first time. So it's not a huge time commitment. It's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it. But thank you both for joining. It's been a lot of fun chatting this game, and I'm even learning stuff as we're speaking. So I appreciate you informing and letting us all know how the speedrun works and how the game works.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks everyone for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, please feel free, subscribe, leave a comment, all that stuff people say at the end of a video. It honestly all goes a long way to help the podcast. Thank you so much. If you want to join us on Discord, we chat mostly about food, but occasionally we do talk about the stuff that's in the podcast. The link is in the show notes or in the description. Feel free. Come on by, join us. If you want to follow on Twitter, Sequence Break PC. Sequence Break PC. I post when I go live. It's kind of not at a set time, so if you want to see the live feed of the podcast, feel free, follow there. And finally, if you want to email, podcast@sequencebreakpodcast.com. Sequencebreakpodcast.com is also where you can find the backlog of all of the episodes. It's also on YouTube as well, so feel free, join in, have some fun. Thank you so much. I will see ya in the next one.